we seem to have discovered that not all fifths are created equally. Most of the fifths that we encounter in the major scale, like C to G, have 7 half steps. But one of the fifths that we find, B to F, seems to have only 6 half steps. And we can actually get a sense of this intuitively by looking at the piano keyboard. We know that every pair of white notes on the piano keyboard, or at least most pairs of white notes on the piano keyboard, cover the distance of 2 half steps. For instance, C to D. C to C sharp is 1 half step, C sharp to D is 2 half steps. So C to D is the distance of 2 half steps, or what we call a whole step. E to F, also the distance of a whole step, or 2 half steps. F to G, also a whole step. G to A, also a whole step. And A to B, also a whole step. And what do all these pairs of white notes that are a whole step have in common? Well, they have in common the fact that there's a black key in between them. And so there's that second half step that black key gives us access to. But then there are these 2 pairs of white notes, the E to the F and the B to the C, that only have 1 half step in between them. And again, they have a half step because there's no black key that sits in between the E or the F or between the B and the C. If we look at most of the fifths that we can make on the piano keyboard, and let's actually do this, we'll notice that most of the fifths that we have in the piano keyboard have a certain number of half steps and a certain number of whole steps. For instance, let's take C to G. We have the whole step from C to D. We have the whole step from D to E. And then we have the whole step from F to G. So we have 3 whole steps, and then this 1 half step between E and F. If we look at the distance from D to A, or the interval from D to A, let's do that. Here's D, here's A. D to A is also 3 whole steps and a half step. Whole step, whole step, whole step, and then the half step between E and F. If we look at E to B, we'll see the same thing. So E to B, E to B, we have whole step, whole step, whole step, and then a half step right here, E to B. If we look at, let's continue on and just see how this plays out. If we look at F to C, let's take a look at F to C. So here's F, here's C. So whole step from F to G, whole step from G to A, whole step from A to B, and then we have a half step, not the half step between E and F, but the half step between B and C. And that again adds up, 3 whole steps plus a half step, adds up to 7 half steps altogether, or 7 chromatic notes. Let's take a look at G to D. So G going up to D, whole step, whole step, whole step, and then again, contained within it there, that B to C half step. Same thing with A to E. We have A up here, we have E up here, whole step, whole step, whole step, and then that same half step between B and C. And then what happens when we get to B to F, that very special kind of fifth that only has 6 half steps? Well, look at what happens. This interval B to F now encompasses those 2 half-step pairs, right? So unlike all the other fifths that only have 1 half-step pair, either the B to the C or to the E to the F, B to F has both of them here. So that means it's going to have 2 half steps and only C to D whole step, D to E whole step. So it's got 2 half steps and 2 whole steps. So you can see just visually on the piano where those extra half steps are missing. B to F gives us 2 of those missing half steps, right here and right here. This interval, by the way, this interval of 6 half steps, or the B to F, is sometimes known as a tritone. It's known as a tritone, by the way, because if you count up 3 whole steps, B to C sharp to D sharp, and D sharp to F, you get 3 whole tones, or 3 whole steps, which is why it is known as the tritone. But the tritone is one of the most interesting and active and unstable intervals in all of music, and we'll be taking a little bit more in-depth look at the tritone in this class, as you will in other classes coming up. Okay, so now we have a sense of why some of the fifths have 6 half steps and some have 7. So now, in the next video, what we're going to do is, or the next set of videos, we're going to go through and now kind of formalize all these different types of fifths, and then look at some other intervals as well.